jobs. So it's a totally failed policy. Only a generation ago, we didn't have government programs, and people worked their way through college, and I was able to get through medical school and college, but it wasn't so expensive. So it's the inflation, the problems of the government. As soon as the government gets involved for good intentions, there's always unintended consequences, and almost inevitably it backfires. And besides, let's say it did sort of work, and it does work for some people. Some people get an education at the expense of others. But why should people who are laborers who never get to go to college, why should they be taxed to send some of us through college? So it's not even a fair system when it works. But obviously it doesn't work, and that's why it's coming to an end. And now they have to talk about, well, what are we're going to have to bail out everybody, bail out the housings, and now bail out the student loans. But that's not the answer. The answer is looking toward the cause, and the cause is spending, debt, printing money, inflation, too much government, loss of confidence in the free market, loss of confidence in liberty is what it is. And where the responsibility is. Responsibility is on the individual and the family to take care of their needs, not the federal bureaucracy.
I think you need very profound reform in education at the state level. You need to dramatically shrink the Federal Department of Education, get rid of virtually all of its regulations. And the truth is, I believe we'd be far better off if most states adopted a program of the equivalent of Pell Grants for K through 12, so that parents could choose where their child went to school, whether it was public or private or homeschooling, and parents could be involved. First of all, I think we ought to look seriously at the cost of higher education, which actually rivals health care in its continuous increase process. And we ought to look at the scale of bureaucracy that's now built into higher education, because it makes it more expensive than it should be. I'll give you an example. Apple has a very bold new idea which basically eliminates textbooks. And you don't print them. They're not really expensive. You put them on an electronic device. You reduce the cost for students dramatically by hundreds of dollars per semester. And by the way, the science textbooks can be updated in real time, so they're much more current. So that would be an example. But I would look, one, at cutting the cost. Two, I actually favor something like a national defense education program for science, math, technology, engineering, because I think we have got to dramatically improve the number of people that we're graduating. I also would encourage at younger levels that we find ways to stimulate and encourage people getting competent in math and science and engineering.
Well, you know what? I supported No Child Left Behind. I supported it. It was the principal priority of President Bush to try to take on a failing education system and try to impose some sort of testing regime that would be able to quantify how well we're doing with respect to education. I have to admit, I voted for that. It was against the principles I believed in, but you know, when you're part of the team, sometimes you take one for the team for the leader, and I made a mistake. You know, politics is a team sport, folks, and sometimes you gotta rally together and do something. And in this case, you know, I thought testing was, you know, and finding out how bad the problem wasn't a bad idea. What was a bad idea was all the money that was put out there, and that, in fact, was a huge problem. I admit the mistake. And I will not make that mistake again. You have someone who is committed. Look, I'm a homeschooling father of 7. I know the importance of customized education for our children. I know the importance of parental control of education. I know the importance of local control of education. And having gone through that experience of the federal government involvement, not only do I believe the federal government should get out of the education business, I think the state government should start to get out of the education business and put it back to the state, to the local and into the community.
Governor Romney, you were a governor, you had to deal with this law, so weigh in. And as you do, it's designed, like it or not, to help the public school system, which has struggled. Senator Santorum just the other day called public schools in this country factories.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that unless you'd like to. With regards to your question, I came into a state where Republicans and Democrats had worked, before I got there, to make some very important changes. They said that they were going to test our kids every year. They said to graduate from high school, you're going to have to pass an exam in English and math. I was the first governor that had to enforce that provision. There were a lot of people that said, oh, no, let people graduate even if they can't pass that exam. I enforced it. We fought it. It was hard to do. We added more school choice. My legislature tried to say no more charter schools. I vetoed that. We overturned that. With school choice, testing our kids, giving our best teachers opportunities for advancement. These kinds of principles drove our schools to be pretty successful. As a matter of fact, there are 4 measures on which the federal government looks at schools state by state. And my state's #1 of all 50 states in all 4 of those measures, 4th and 8th graders in English and math. Those principles, testing our kids, excellent curriculum, superb teachers, and school choice, those are the answers to help our schools. And with regards to No Child Left Behind, the right answer there, this President Bush stood up and said, you know what, the teachers' unions don't want school choice. I want school choice to see who's succeeding and failing. He was right to fight for that. There are things that should be changed in the law, but we have to stand up to the federal teachers' unions and put the kids first and the unions behind.
Mr. Speaker, on that point.
Have already been extended to 99 weeks and they are set to expire soon. If you were president today, would you extend unemployment benefits? And if not, how do you justify that to the millions of unemployed Americans who are looking in earnest and whose families are depending on those checks?
Well, what I've said is that I think unemployment compensation should be tied directly to a training program. And if you don't have a job and you need help, then in order for us to give you the help, you should sign up for a business-led training program so that that 99 weeks becomes an investment in human capital, giving us the best trained workforce in the world so you can get a job. But I believe it is fundamentally wrong to give people money for 99 weeks for doing nothing. That's why we had welfare reform.
Let me lay it out. First of all, for the people who are already retired or 55 years of age and older, nothing changes. It's very important because I know the Democrats are going to be showing videos of old people being thrown off cliffs and so forth. But don't forget who it was that cut Medicare by $500 billion, and that was President Obama to pay for Obamacare. So let's not forget that. What I would do with Social Security is that I would lower, if you will, the 2.0, the version for the next generations coming up. I'd lower the rate of inflation growth in the benefits received by higher income recipients and keep the rate as it is now pretty high for lower income recipients. And I'd also add a year to 2 to the retirement age under Social Security. That balances Social Security. With regards to Medicare, I would lay out the plan that, I actually did a couple of months ago that said, again, for higher income recipients, lower benefit, a premium support program which allows people to buy either current standard Medicare or a private plan. And this is the proposal which Congressman Paul Ryan has adopted. It's a proposal which I believe is absolutely right on. We have a premium support program, give people choice, let competition exist in our Medicare program by virtue of the 2 things I've described. Higher benefits for lower income people, lower benefits for higher income people, and making a premium support program in Medicare and Social Security a slightly higher retirement age. You balance those 2 programs. By the way, the 3rd major entitlement, Medicaid, you send back to the states. And the 4th new entitlement, Obamacare, you repeal that one. And finally get our balance sheet right.
Governor Romney, do you want your 30 seconds? Or are you just enjoying this back and forth? Would you like to weigh in?
Rick is right. I know it's popular here to say, oh, we can do this and it's not going to cost anything. But look, it's going to get tough to get our federal spending from the current 25% of the GDP down to 20, down to 18%, which has been our history. We got a huge number of obligations in this country, and cutting back is going to have to happen. I know something about balancing budgets. In the private sector, you don't have a choice. You balance your budget or you go out of business. And we simply can't say we're going to go out and borrow more money to let people set up new accounts that take money away from Social Security and Medicare today. Therefore, we should allow people to have a voluntary account, a voluntary savings program, tax-free. That's why I've said anybody middle income should be able to save their money tax-free. No tax on interest, dividends, or capital gains. That'll get Americans saving. It accomplishes your objective, Mr. Speaker, without threatening the future of America's vitality by virtue of fiscal
incentives. You say Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are all unconstitutional.
Technically they are, but I also just...
Why?
Because there's no authority there. Article 1, Section 8 doesn't say I can set up a insurance program for people. What part of the Constitution you get from? The liberals are the ones that use this general welfare clause.
Well, okay, all right. Well, I don't know that I'm a liberal, but let's put it up on the screen, because that's exactly the point. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. Doesn't Social Security come under promoting the general welfare?
Absolutely not. General welfare is the general condition. Maybe sound currency is general welfare. Maybe markets, maybe a judicial system, maybe a national defense. But this is specific welfare. This justifies the whole welfare state. The military-industrial complex, the welfare to foreigners, the welfare state that imprisons our people and impoverishes our people and gives us our recessions. So no, why would you have Article 1, Section A, and why would you have the Amendment number 9 and 10? That means there's no reason for Article 1, number 10. If you believe that, the General Revenue Clause, that is such an extreme liberal viewpoint that has been mistaught in our schools for so long, and that's what we have to reverse, that very notion that you're presenting.
For Medicaid, for food stamps, a whole host of other means-tested entitlement programs that are already run by the states, and give them the flexibility to be able to go out and design programs that meet the needs of their particular constituencies. We did that with welfare, and we cut the welfare rolls by 50%. We did that at a time when welfare rolls were the highest level ever, just like food stamps are at the highest level ever. And guess what happened? Poverty rates went down. People went to work. Why? Because we put time limits and we put work requirements on receiving government benefits. We do those things again. We can help turn this economy around. We hear all the time, I even hear it from manufacturers, we have a hard time finding workers. Well, when you have 99 weeks of unemployment benefits and you have a variety of other social safety net programs, people can make choices that they otherwise wouldn't make if the economy was not one that government dependency was the watchword. This president is not interested, in my opinion, in providing jobs. He's interested in providing benefits. He's interested in redistributing wealth and creating a dependency class which is a reliable voting group for him and those who want to pass out the redistributed wealth. The problem, as Margaret Thatcher is with redistribution of wealth and socialism, eventually you run out of other people's money.
As President of the United States, would you sign that death warrant for an American citizen overseas who you believe is a terrorist suspect?
Well, he's not a terrorist suspect. He's a person who was found guilty under review of actively seeking the death of Americans.
Not found guilty by a court, sir.
He was found guilty by a panel that looked at it and reported to the president.
Well, that's extrajudicial. It's not the rule of law.
It is the rule of law. That is explicitly false. It is the rule of law. No. If you engage in war against the United States, you are an enemy combatant. You have none of the civil liberties of the United States. You cannot go to court. Now, let me be very clear about this at two levels. There's a huge gap here that frankly, far too many people get confused over. Civil defense, criminal defense, is a function of being within the American law. Waging war on the United States is outside criminal law. It is an act of war and should be dealt with as an act of war, and the correct thing in an act of war is to kill people who are trying to kill you.
Governor Romney, when President Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act into law, he enacted a provision allowing him to indefinitely detain American citizens in U.S. military custody. Many, including Congressman Paul, have called this unconstitutional. At the same time, the bill did provide money to continue funding U.S. troops. Governor Romney, as president, would you have signed the National Defense Act as written?
Yes, I would have, and I do believe that it's appropriate.
Congressman Paul, a different question. Your plan to...
Why can't I answer about that one?
You were included in the question in the first place. Do you want 30 seconds to respond to this?
I need a minute. No, I think we're going in the wrong direction for the protections of our liberties here at home. They're under deep threat. The Patriot Act has eliminated the Fourth Amendment. We now have a policy of preemptive war. You don't have to declare war, and you don't even have to have an enemy. We can start the wars. That's what preemptive war is all about. Now, with the